supervisors.
Yeah.
The same people from the earlier meeting are still in attendance. And again, I'll ask anybody that has a cell phone, please make sure it's on silent. And do we want to repeat the Pledge of the Allegiance?
Yes.
No.
I got a yes and a no.
We have the same audience.
Yes. I'll give you I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If anybody does want to address the board, please fill out a sheet in the back. And I will ask Chris, do we have anybody that signed up to speak?
Yes, at the moment, we have one, Mr. Jim Brand at Long Lake Circle, has some comments, general.
Thank you, Chris. I am Jim Brand, residing at 10154 Avalon Lake Circle, Hampton Park, in Gateway. Good afternoon, Madam Chairperson, Supervisors, and District staff. First, congratulations to Supervisor Banks and Supervisor Guy on their victories on November the 6th. Well done. Great job. Congratulations. Secondly, Supervisor Banks, on November the 1st, during your supervisor comments, I understand you to say that double-digit tax rate increases could not continue on the Gateway taxpayers. I hope that's correct, and that you will work to convince your counterparts that other creative ways must be found to finance the needs of the community. I will help you in any way possible when needed. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That was it?
I do not have any other speaker cards.
Wow, okay. District manager and utility manager up next.
Well, we just had some very abbreviated comments. That was kind of left on there. Our big staff reports will come at the first meeting of the next month. I did get some complaints from a few residents about the amount of overnight parking over at the fun park, including people parking not only their vehicles, but bringing their boats and trailers in and leaving them over the weekend or while they're there. And they want to know why we had a tow sign up there, but we weren't towing their vehicles away. And I suggested they come to the board and make a statement about that. And we'll also be taking a look at our sound system and our monitors and that over the next few weeks about kind of upgrading, not a bit large cost at all. We did get some comments from audience members about the heights of our monitors and also from our recording people on the notes about some of the garbled conversation and that. So we're looking at direct sound pickups from your microphones to kind of isolate that, and also makes it easier for their note taking. And that's about all. We've just been staying busy with maintenance work.
All right.
And we do,
Oh, sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
Just to formalize too, with the rates and consultants, we have Daryl Parker scheduled for the first meeting in January to come make the connection fees, and at that time we'll request the board to start that 9 to 8 o'clock. We will, if we get approval, then we'll set the public hearing date, and when the utility bills go out January 11th, there'll be a mailer included with those. We're also moving forward with the holiday event that's upcoming, and we've expanded a lot of aspects of that event, including fireworks for 10 minutes at the end, an enhanced stage and enhanced lighting for the community performers, some additional food trucks being there, and we're basically covering all these additional costs through contributions from the community. So there'll be no additional budget outlay for that.
Very good.
What day is it? December 7th or 6th? 7th, I'm sorry, yeah, Friday.
Question?
Yeah, several questions. Chris, where are we at on ponds 106 and 108 on putting in littorals? We brought that up at the last meeting.
We're actually putting together a whole bid package for an entire project, including the littorals for the new ponds in the second set.
Because we also have the two at Cypress Cay that have a littoral requirement that we said we were gonna do, and we've never done it yet.
And we're gonna do that all in one bid, and also about the best time to do that is in April and May when the water's at its lowest point. So as the lake bank in the next phase, that construction ties up, we'll be going in and doing all that planting at one time. And we're gonna bid it out, so a scale that large instead of pond, or just a few ponds at a time, we'll get a better price.
This one is gonna get interesting. What was the result of the Hampton Park littoral meeting?
No, we had a real good discussion, had the vendors there, George and some of his staff from Aquagenics were there. We had the president of the homeowners association, a couple concerned residents, the second board member was there, and we went over the requirements of the development order. And what came out of that is we're going to reconvene again December 5th, and we're bringing some 24 by 36 maps of the requirements that everyone can read, and then we're going to sit down and just get on the same page for the maintenance going forward.
Rumor flying, they got back to me that Lee County Code Enforcement has called and told us that we will not touch any littorals. Is that true?
Had no communication. With
No communication of you or staff on that? Okay, the reason I ask is because that's what I've heard. I'm looking at 10-418, which is the Lee County requirements for littorals.
Right.
And they categorically indicate the opposite of that, that the littorals are not to, and you're to avoid having, wherever possible, littoral shelves built on residential properties. And the story I heard is that individual with staff said, screw that. I don't care what's in the DO, I want them all the way around the pond, if they're around the pond and not maintain them, which is totally against our pond standards and totally against the county's pond standards. So if it didn't happen, then it's rumor. So
And we're using it as a guiding light, that DO. And
the
Hampton
DO
Park.
is the DO.
And one thing we did mention to them too is that the county is flexible to some degree. If you have so many plants, you could talk to them, where do you want to put them? All right, this number, we can place them here, we can place them there. Or if they wanted to use some deep water trees as that count.
Well, if you recall, when we were doing 6-8 months ago, we had that nightmare knockdown drag out with Lennar on accepting this stuff because of the question of whether it met the development order and that we weren't going to get screwed. Well, this is where I see it heading right now. They did not comply with the development order, in my opinion, when they did it. Pond 3, great example. Every pond in Gateway and in compliance with the county standards, where you have littorals, there is to be one littoral per lineal foot of pond. Pond 3 has 1,900 lineal feet, so what they did is they had 500, 500, 500, 400 littorals placed. And they defined the area those were to be placed.
Right.
That's it. We're in compliance. The only issue we have is that it calls for a zone that those are to be maintained. And that's the position I'm taking is that to let this sprawl go doesn't accomplish anything.
Sure, and that's what we talked about really, was what the maintenance plan, and so what Aquagenics wants to do is in concert with what the residents want to do with the DO as the guiding light. But that we're basically going to take those 24 by 36 and mark them up, and then I'll go, okay, this is what, George moving forward. And of course, he's just taken over November 1, they
Yeah,
started.
if you take and come up with a 24 by 36 aerial, superimpose the DO, and use Pond 3 as an example, you're 90% home. You're 90% home. Next item, soccer agreement. It expires 12/31 this year. When are we going to have a discussion on that at the December meeting?
Well,
Was that on the agenda?
It'll probably be January. I sent out a request to get everybody to come in and sit down at the same table to see if there's things that they want to address. And we're also talking about some in the weeds issues like moving goals during their practice time, so it's not always in the same places. And trying to write some of those or get some maintenance type standards.
Okay, well, I certainly have some issues to talk when we talk about that. And then the last one that's just come up, and we were talking in the hallway, and I think the other board members need to be aware and cognizant of the problem. We don't have what I call a 001 slush fund, contingency fund. We don't have an enterprise, be it water, sewer, or irrigation slush fund. But we, in reality, have a problem day in, day out in this place that just occurred this week. We got 4 inlets that we found over in Gateway Greens that were buried, that we're having to raise them up. $1,100, I believe, Kenny, correct? $1,100 times 4, $4,400. Where's the money come from? Next one, streetlights, West Links, we're having problems down there. I know we're incurring costs, Bentley's not doing it for free. Where's the money come from?
Well, there's budget line items for street light maintenance. There's also budget line items for stormwater system maintenance and lake banks. So smaller items like that, a few $1,000s, we're chipping away at that with. But if it became any significant impact on the Gateway Green situation with the stormwater that we uncovered, we were gonna look and see where they ended up with the bids, you know, and then that would be a secondary priority. And that situation's a little different too, because that whole system over there has some significant impacts from the golf course. And I've been talking with the golf course management on easements for the pond banks and bringing that into the conversation, because until we can get that.
You talking about
settled-
on the golf course side?
Yes, sir. And it's coming into the villa's property and basically using a villa's stormwater system to drain that side of the course. So that's
Well,
something we need to look at.
The golf course has its own drains
Right.
in that area, the villa's drains, and somebody, and I have no idea who or when they did it, but they put in a mound, a berm, and that berm separates the water that goes to the CDD's drainage system and separates the water that goes to the golf course drainage system. I have no idea what the condition of the golf course drainage system is, and if anybody's ever put a camera in it to verify that it's not plugged up. But that doesn't impact what we're talking about over in the villas. Those sewers, they need to be cleaned. But the real issue is this general thing of how we come up with money to be able to do this stuff when it happens, because maintenance has got to be performed.
And if
And you can't guesstimate all these things that are gonna go wrong in a system that's 30 years old.
No,
It's
that's
every
why-
day there's something new.
That's why we'll go out in some of these small scale and take a look at what the real problem was and excavate a couple of them. We did it, but that's kind of where we stopped right there, because, you know, a few $1,000s to go and investigate and fix some caps is one thing, but going in there, because when you look at the number of those that would need to be raised and done, now you get into $8,000 or $10,000 or more. And cleaning lines is a different story, and that's not unusual. When they went to clean the lines in Stony Brook, they found that sod was over them, and they had to go find them with a metal detector and cut them out. And I think he also found another pipe that went straight down, but it wasn't joined to the drain pipe, it just sat on top.
Sod on top of them is one thing, but what we observed was plain down blatant illegal. They lifted the drain inlet off the mounting, put the filter fabric under the drain inlet, put the drain inlet back, wrapped the filter fabric back over the top, and covered it with dirt. Like, somebody's got, you know what, for brains, you don't do that. And then they wanna know why they have flooding. No place for the water to go. But my point was, if you feel safe on having the access to the funds to do that type of stuff that we've got, then I don't have an issue. But when we have something that's wrong like that, needs to be fixed, it needs to be fixed.
Yeah. You're uncover it every day.
That's all I had.
Okay, go ahead. You have something?
Hey, Chris, can you just give us a staff update on the positions you have open?
We're revising and fine tuning, and they will be advertised, both of them again next week. We did not advertise to date the stormwater position, but that will be going out in the stormwater magazine and at a significant cost. I say significant, $500 to run an advertisement, trying to find the right person. We advertised a public works job, we got 120 applications in, and there wasn't one in that pile that we felt was even worth bringing somebody in to interview, so we're getting ready to re-advertise those. And hopefully, the first part of the year, we'll have some people on board.
So we got Public Works, and then
It's
it's
a stormwater coordinator position.
coordinator. And the stormwater report up to the Public Works?
Yes.
Okay. I know that you use some industry sites to post some of these.
Yes.
I mean, I think it's gonna be really important for us, for both these positions, to make sure that we get the right, you know, the right candidates in with the right skill set. So, if we have to, you know, spend a little bit of money to post, on industry site or even a site like Indeed, that's probably the top job board at this point, it would, you know, you'll get higher quality, hopefully.
Yeah, we've used Indeed before, and basically we're just going to the trade publication now, the Public Works Journal, you know, and also Florida Water Pollution Control Operators Association, you know, stuff that's directly into those people in the field, because we seem to do a little better with that than actually Indeed. You know,
Yeah.
or something.
I mean, that's fine, whatever, I mean, you probably know where these are, but,
But you wrote two positions, Public Works and Stormwater.
Coordinator.
yeah.
Mrs. Flaherty?
Yes, to go off of that, neither one of them are gonna be do maintenance,
No, they're gonna be advertised as working positions.
so we're not gonna have a maintenance person, is this correct?
No, we're gonna have, those people should be able to do maintenance as part of their duty. And if it
Okay.
includes even framing up some storm drains or dropping concrete in, I would say the idea is a working supervisor. We don't need one at a desk pointing fingers telling people what to do.
And you got job descriptions for both of these?
Yes. And I'll be happy to bring them to you at the next meeting, with a status update where they're at.
Right, going off of Mr. Tinkle with the soccer, you are gonna discuss moving your nets, because as you go out, you can see that, the grass is destroyed because they keep the nets in the same place instead of.
Whether they're practice or playing.
Right, okay. The other thing is an update on what we got from the insurance for the hurricane, and that, where are we with FEMA?
We have not gotten any reimbursement yet from FEMA. We've signed a few documents. And one trouble area I'll bring up to you that we ran into is basically when they see if your insurance company will pay or won't pay a claim. We ran into about 30% of the street signs that we put in a claim for were not on our insurance policy because they were never added on our insurance policy, meaning our inventory was deficit
Lacking.
on those things over the years. And our plan to address this is when the pool staff is not working, when they start the renovations, which we should have the permit, I'm gonna have them out there in the buggies, taking a picture, getting a coordinate on the phone and adding that.
Good idea.
So that, yeah, that happened with some of the street signs and also a couple of light poles. They were not added when they installed.
Can I continue?
Yes.
Pool permit, where are we with the pool permit?
We should have it tomorrow.
Okay, and so therefore the pool will be closed starting on Monday? Okay,
So we'll find out tomorrow for sure, but it'll be within a day or two of that.
Keep going.
You're on a roll.
Yep, keep going.
okay. I asked about the maintenance person, if you go down Gateway, it is filthy. Okay, and I talked to Mainscape already, they clean it in the morning, but by the time you go around 5 o'clock, there's all kinds of rubbish. Is there anything we can do about that rubbish? When we, moved into Gateway, it was like crystal clean, and now it looks like,
It's a county road now. I don't mean to give that as an excuse, but it's also, with 82, turned into a thoroughfare, more than a community road. But literally, we could talk to the county about it, but, sending somebody up and down a county road.
Have you ever traveled behind a trash truck and seen all the trash
Well,
flying off?
And we've still been pulling signs
Mhm.
and things off of that, but I almost would check, because I think we'd almost need a permit to be doing that in the county right away.
okay, I just see all this garbage. Okay, may I continue?
Go ahead. You got the floor
What
till
about
you
the-
tell me you're done.
Okay, rules, we were supposed to be going over some of the board rules, where are we with that?
Absolutely no progress on that at all. I'm at the moment mired in utility update on policy and procedures and rules, and that is gonna take more legal help than staff into it.
Okay. And my last one for now is the criteria manual, are we anywhere up on?
Oh, same thing, haven't touched it.
Okay. Thank you.
And what about the pole across the street on Gateway?
Oh, I have that right here.
Okay.
Pole is still down.
That'll be fixed tomorrow.
Okay.
Got a bag of cement.
I finished now,
And
at
actually,
least for a while.
and actually what happens with those, that happened in Hampton Park too, you get some of the people on their golf carts or their four-wheelers, and they just go up and either pull them out or they mow them over to get into the power line right away.
And we still have the fence that's supposed to go up there in place in our budget, right? Okay. And we find out what's happening with FPL. Okay.
That's a Tony question, I'm
That's-
sure he has an answer.
Well, again, the game plan is to bring it to the board in December for acceptance.
Okay. All right, thank you.
District engineer.
Yes, ma'am. For the record, Danny Nelson with Tetra Tech District Engineer. I have one item on the agenda, and that's associated with the school and a discharge of dewatering effluent. And we actually have here today from Johnson Engineering, Dana Hume and Kim Arnold, if they may wish to speak to explain what they're looking to do. But in the memo, basically, Johnson Engineering, who's performing the site and civil design for the school, came to Chris actually through an email and asked if it would be okay to discharge their dewatering effluent through what will end up being their permanent connection into the surface water management system. So Chris sent it to me. Before he did, he actually said, well, the rules do not, they only recognize stormwater as going through your surface water management system, which technically dewatering effluent is not. So Chris asked me from an engineering standpoint, I put the memo together that you see, which I basically state, that from an engineering standpoint, I don't have issue with it, provided we have some of the items that I've asked for here, which are that they don't exceed their permitted allotment, that they obtain their permit from the Water Management District for dewatering, which they will, that they file their proper stormwater pollution prevention plan and notice of intent, which they will, and that they provide us with what that method is and what safeguards they'll have for water quality. So that's what we've outlined in there. If you have any questions.
Mr. Guy, it looks like we got, everybody on the board has a question.
Great.
Dewatering effluent, in normal English, what does that mean?
Okay, so when they're constructing, they have to dewater the groundwater.
Dewater the groundwater.
In some cases, we live in Florida, so it's
Dewater the groundwater.
sure. When they're installing, for instance, stormwater pipe or underground utilities, you don't install those in a wetted condition, so you dewater for that for that installation. So it's a common practice that we have here in Florida. And there are multiple ways of doing it. And I imagine Kim would probably share how they plan to do it. One of the ways is doing well points. They're probably not going to do well points on this. And that's essentially where they would come in and they would literally stick in.
They dry it out.
Well,
Yeah.
they dry it out. That's essentially what we're
That's
doing.
what I'm-
Okay, sorry.
That's
I'm
what
trying
I'm-
to use my technical ways of explaining.
Can't build on quicksand.
Right.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mrs. Flaherty.
Who will oversee that they do not exceed the, what is permitted?
Well, I'll tell you that part I'm not concerned of, because they will hold probably 95, 98% of the time, if not more than that, they'll hold it on site. It's going to be very infrequent that they've got to release, and it probably will only be if there's a storm event that comes through, but they anticipate holding on site. So I'm really not worried about them exceeding that.
Thank you.
And when is that, do we have a target?
As far as date of,
Yeah, I mean, just ballpark, do we know about when that's?
probably so.
Probably latter part of next year, we'll get started with construction.
Madam Chair, you want to ask the gentleman to identify himself for the record?
And I'll say, so I'm at the microphone, as Dana Hume had indicated it would be latter part of 19
And he's with Johnson Engineering.
with Johnson Engineering.
Go ahead.
Thank you, sir.
How's the water getting there?
To
How's the water getting from their property over into Hampton Park?
Well, they would have a plan that they would submit to us for that, but I'm assuming that they would have a collection system. They would probably have a pond on site, and then it would be piped into there. Am I somewhat close?
So what are you connecting to the 24-inch that's on the, crossing the road right now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Because that's very, very high. not a very low invert there.
That is correct.
I was just wondering, I was waiting to hear, are you pumping it?
And Kim, jump up if you want to. So for the record, Dana Kuhn with Johnson Engineering. We're anticipating, like Danny was saying, holding the majority, if not all, of the water on site while we're doing our dewatering activities. If we do have any water that does need to be released, it'll be released via, usually we put a pipe in the top of the berm, and then
It's like an overflow weir.
Yes, sir, exactly.
And then a measuring capability there?
Yes. And it'll follow all the NPDES
But
permit.
from your right-of-way across the Griffin Drive right-of-way to the invert of the 24-inch culvert going underneath the road, that'll be piped. It's not gonna be any open channel flow.
No, sir.
Okay.
No, sir.
Is there any action on this item that you need, or is this just for information purposes?
I think it needs action because technically you're, I mean, we'll see once we get, you know, their information in. And so I really don't know that it does. The only thing, the reason why we had it on here is, again, your rules only allow stormwater and not dewatering. Yeah.
Madam Chairman, I believe it does require, suggest board action. And then I would suggest that the letter of approval outline all the detail and criteria and safeguards that Danny mentioned, including subsequent submittal and review and approval of plans, because we have a separate rule out there that talks about no discharges to any part of our stormwater management system without formal approval. That's that issue about conservation areas and wetlands. So I would suggest that the board authorize the manager and engineer to prepare a letter of approval with those conditions and stipulations as presented today.
Do I have a motion for that?
I'll make the motion.
Second? Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay.
Could you repeat what the motion is, please?
To authorize the manager and the engineer to draft a letter of approval with the stipulations and conditions outlined in the engineer's report, including that the school district will provide plans and specifications to be reviewed and requiring the approval of this.
And obtain all necessary permits.
Obtain all necessary permits.
Okay. A motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Danny.
That's all I had on the agenda. If you have any questions, but we did have one item that I think we'll bring it back before the next meeting, but and it's on Pelican Preserve, a question of the yard drains or the residential drains, and we actually had Scott Connell go out and do an inspection, so we'll bring that back before the board at the next meeting. So just let me know.
That sounds good, thank you,
With
Danny.
with that, I can stick around. I don't think there's anything left on the agenda, but I think it'd be better use.
Madam Chairman, I might, while the engineer's here, while we're talking drainage and water management, this is just an informational item. If you recall that we had the discussion in the past regarding the cleaning of the subsurface drainage pipes in the village of Gateway Greens. And the idea was to try to attempt to obtain easements from the various property owners to allow that activity to occur, that the district would then have a requisite interest to perform that activity. I was forwarded an email that one of the owners in the village of Gateway Greens was provided by his lender or his lender's agent. My understanding is the residents are willing to grant easements, but this was the most over-the-top requirement by that property owner's lender that I've seen. They wanted, I think, a $300 application fee, they wanted a survey, they wanted a good faith estimate of the value of the property that was going to be the subject. Basically, they were treating it like an eminent domain action. So I turned on my little 40-watt refrigerator type light bulb, and it went on, and I said, you know, as opposed to getting a permanent easement, my understanding is this is a cleaning operation that may not happen all that often. It hasn't happened since those pipes were installed, is my understanding. So I drafted a temporary drainage pipe cleaning license agreement that would give the district requisite ability to go in there and clean the pipes in these various areas. We had the same exhibits we used before. We can attach them. And it's good for 6 months. We can go in there, clean it, get out, license agreement goes away, doesn't require any joinder by any mortgage holder, doesn't get recorded in the public record. It's just a requisite instrument the district has to say, we were authorized to go upon your property. So that's, like I said, sometimes those little 40-watt light bulbs are brighter than you think they're gonna be.
That sounds good.
This would solve what had a lot of problems,
Yeah.
because Larry
Oh, it was crazy.
is here, and that's insane what they were being required to go through. So-
Over the top was too mild a phrase to use for what that lender required.
So as soon as we get that, can we get the form of agreement and
I
get
have-
it, make 23 copies, and Chris get with Larry, and what we'll do is pull the, the attachments, put the exhibit attached to the new license agreement, and request that they get those signatures from the property owners.
And we have already, just recently, we sent out, before the temporary idea came up, the easements for the property owners, anticipating the ones that didn't have a mortgage would sign them and return them. So we may get a fair number of those. We did get 2 back if people had clear title.
And what we may want to do though, just for standpoint of consistency, to avoid any confusion, is treat them all for get the temporary license agreement, might be better. Because some people may be offended that, gee, why did I grant an easement, it's impermanent on the property, my neighbor only gave a license. That's all. But yeah, nice going on some of those people, nice.
All right, that moves us to the consent agenda.
We'll get questions, other questions for Tony.
Yes, sir.
Area 9, we talked about it earlier. Is there a solution in the future to allow us, because I agree with what Bill said, in part on that flowway on the west side of 75.
That's what I'm working on to bring back to the board. I have some additional thoughts at the December meeting.
Okay.
And whether or not they would be viable or not, I'll advise the board at that
Well,
time.
well, let me throw one at you that I was looking at from a perspective of how do you do it? Right now, we did some calculations, and I think we came up with 415-ton trucks to remove that material. And of course,
Say again?
415 cubic yard trucks to remove that material. You take that down the road that we go in back there, which is the only way to get back there, and that weight of vehicles will just obliterate what's out there. So we've got an issue of how we get them in, how we get them out. But once we get them back there, because the narrowness of that easement is how do we get them to back up to get to a dredge that hauls the material, puts the material into the truck. I mean, we got a problem because there's not enough room back there. So when you're doing this, somehow, some way, we gotta figure out a logistics of how, we can tell the contractor, we want you to do this. He's gonna come back and say, how in the hell did I do it? It's impossible.
Yeah,
So we've got that issue to
Yeah,
work with.
I understand,
on
we've had that brief conversation, Chris,
Okay.
and I have had a conversation too, and I'm not an engineer or a contractor, and whether or not there's a possibility of having alternative, sedimentation removal techniques. In other words, take it out of the flowway, put it up on the top of the bank and grade it out. I've seen that happen in other areas.
There's no room.
Well,
That's the
and again, the
problem.
silt came from somewhere, so whether it came from the bank
Downstream.
or came from further
Upstream.
upstream or not. But again,
Big pipe.
the easement was of a certain defined width, and if we try to expand it beyond, it cause more problems. And additionally, the idea of those heavy trucks, Reflection Isles people don't think will appreciate them going east-west on that road just before their gates. Is that a fair statement, Chris? We'd have to be because they've been very friendly.
Yeah.
Well, wait a minute, there's no Reflection Isle roads impacted by this whatsoever.
It's before Reflection Isles.
It's before Reflection Isle, which is a county road.
Well, that
So-
Palomino
Yeah,
is,
it's that road.
it's
And
questionable.
actually, yeah, it's questionable, actually,
But-
I think from the stop sign up at the four-way it belongs.
When,
to
Yes.
when we saw
Isles.
Reflection Isle being built, they were taking semis in there like crazy, so I don't think that's an issue.
I understand.
The width is an issue.
Yeah, but in talking with the folks at Reflect, there is a question as to that east-west leg, as to whether it is in fact a county road or not,
Oh, you mean the dirt segment?
the east-west.
Yeah.
No, it's semi-paved, right, Chris?
Yeah, no, it's paved going into Reflection Isles up to that first one. There's questions on title about who actually owns it. The county says
Wait,
Reflection Isles.
what are we talking
owns it.
about, east-west road paved?
Entry road going right into Reflection Isles, not
That's
the road
north-
on it.
that's
You go
north-south.
north-south, then you go east-west.
Yeah.
So anyways, that's on the radar.
Second issue is, if we are going to be discussing at the December meeting, the FPL easement, and we're going to be taking that over. Is there a need and necessity for the transfer of the Worthington to Bay Colony easement, the 60-footer, to us, since it's not going to be ours?
If it's accomplished by that time, no. If the closing occurs or right after that, no.
I talked to David before the meeting, and he said if you need, send him a copy of that original agreement that from Worthington to Bay Colony, and he would be more than willing to grant that easement to us to work on.
Okay, yeah, so
Because we want to get, okay, you saw that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, because we want to get that Stony Brook deal resolved.
That'd be nice. Anything else?
That's all I have.
Okay, consent agenda.
A and B.
Go ahead, what do you got on A?
A? Okay. Mr. Tinkle did mention the soccer, that expires the end of the year. I also saw the flag football. Are you going to be talking to them?
Yes, flag football and both the soccer leagues.
Okay, and we have there's a couple that expire in March. I didn't know how long we need to work on those. One is the natural gas contract,
So look and see.
okay? And the other is the Infomark. I don't know how much time we need to work on that. And the other is the attorney that expires in March. So I don't know how we look at those things.
Let's hope the attorney does not expire in March.
The contract does, and I didn't know.
I don't know, he looks
how we
like he's on his last leg.
I don't know the process of what we do.
just
Okay, so
I couldn't let it
mentioned
go.
Yep.
that because it
That was
is
a
in March and
softball.
we want to have enough time.
Bring it up
Okay.
at the next meeting.
Oh.
Options.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that was 4A.
Anybody else have anything on 4A?
Yeah.
4B?
Okay, I can't find it, but I remember looking, Mr. Bloom, for CDs that were expiring and had a very low rate. And I was wondering if there was somewhere we could move those. It was like 0.45, and I know there's other banks that have a 2% rate. And I was wondering if we could look into moving them out of that bank that they're in and into another bank, even the one here on Gateway, because it is part of Gateway, because they're offering a higher rate too. So,
Sure. To answer that question, when any CD matures, basically, and we do this regularly throughout the month, we go out to about 15 to different 20 banks that we work with. Anybody who has ever, said they're interested in public funds, and we provide them the opportunity to give us their best rates. Based on that, we then reinvest those CDs. So the one, in particular, there are 2 maturing next month, and then another 2 maturing in January.
Right.
So all 4 of those will go through that same process in terms of basically, getting the best rate, which now is upwards of 2.5,
Right.
at least.
that was it, thank you.
Okay, have a motion to accept consent agenda items A and B.
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay, have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, brings us to action. That brings us to action items. First one is a resolution. General fund budget, I guess that's you.
That's me. Okay, so this is resolution 2019-1, which is page 107. So the backstory on this is each, government has 60 days after year end to make any budget amendments that are required. A budget amendment will be required if you were to exceed the total budgetary expenditures for the year. So there are 2 funds, the general fund Pelican Preserve, and then the general fund for the lake bank restoration projects. So for both of them, we have exceeded the annual budget. So this budget amendment, it's kind of a bookkeeping item, but has to get done, would be to increase the budgets to account for, that additional spending that occurred throughout the year. And we have included in the next couple pages, particular page 109 at the bottom, you can see in the bracketed or boxed column, that would be what we are amending. And again, we are just amending this to cover the additional spending. The spending was already approved, but we have to have a budget amendment to make it official.
This all just 002?
002 and 006, which is the next page. And 006 is basically just to accommodate the Lake Bank
Okay,
projects.
that's Lake Bank.
Yeah, but it has to get done.
Motion to approve resolution 2019-1.
Second.
Okay, question?
Go ahead.
Could I have the exact amounts? Could you state them so that they're on record? The exact amount were
Okay, let me start with Pelican Preserve,
for the minutes, thank you.
002, and the total amount, bottom there, the total amount that is going to be amended is 931,917. So that's 931,917.
Okay,
On the Lake Bank restoration, 006 is the fund. The total expenditures is going to be $1,359,646. So that's 1,359,646.
thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep, we have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, 5B, Pelican Preserve. Oh,
Yeah, Madam Chairman, this is a follow-up to a previous board action with the board at the request of PPAC. At the last board meeting, said we grant this approval to be provided to the chairman of PPAC for emergency expenditures between meetings. And that I suggest it be memorialized in a resolution, and this is the resolution.
Okay.
So moved.
Second.
Okay,
Who seconded?
Mr. Tinkle.
Okay.
So we have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you.
Yep. You. LED light pole assembly purchase.
That would be neat, and that was a couple of light poles that we had destroyed by cars in accidents, and were replaced, and they were covered under insurance. And we did get an extra pole to have in stock. When these poles are damaged, it generally takes anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks to get them. The county would like them, if they're on Gateway or Griffin, replaced within 48 hours. They don't like lights being out. So, our original estimate, it went over $854, so the 10,000 spending limit. So we're bringing it to the board and also letting you know how much light poles cost.
It's so funny, like, we don't have a whole lot of accidents, on that side, but when we do, they always hit a light pole,
Yep.
every time. Every time.
It's a good
The
target.
last one that was hit, they brought a drug dog and pulled the guy away.
Yeah.
Yeah, he went away for a lot more than accident charges. There were firearms and drugs in his car.
You said these were covered by insurance?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so that's fine.
So
So,
he wants a motion to approve this?
So moved.
Second.
and we're getting reimbursed by the insurance?
Yes. We lowered our deductible because before we had about a $5,000 deductible, and every time we got a sign, one of those poles hit, it wasn't covered. So it was very little cost to lower the deductible, so at least we had 90% of the pole covered.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, I have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? 5D, landscaping. This is in Stony Brook. And this was actually in last year's budget, I believe. This got forwarded to 2019. They had requested this a long time ago, and it's finally coming before us to approve this.
May I
There's-
talk?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay. This is just enhancement of that area that Mainscape, Al and I went through, and it is within their budget. They had the 20,000 additional set aside to do this, so that's what it's for.
You want to make that motion?
I'll make a motion to accept the expenditure not to exceed the 20,000 for Mainscape proposal of 8/2018 for Stony Brook landscape improvements on Pebblebrook.
Second.
Okay, a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, 5E, we're moving right along, I like this. Legal services, update utility service policies and procedures.
And that's, I brought that up in concert with adopting new rates for connection fees and for our utility charges. We're also looking at a significant update to our utility policies and procedures. Specific among that too, the way we lien bad debt that we have, the way we handle our turn-on, turn-offs, how long we can go after past due accounts. Also, we are looking at implementing a recapture charge. For example, we have a restaurant that came in for a 3/4 inch meter, 350 gallons a day. They're using about 1,600 gallons a day. This will allow us to evaluate those bills every year and look at the amount of water they're using and actually go back after those fees. It was basically underestimating on the part of the engineer, whoever submitted that data. So actually recapturing that revenue.
Madam Chairman?
Yes, go right ahead.
Well, I know that recapture is important on some occasions. I am not in favor of recapturing on residential, only commercial.
And typically, that's where we find it, find those issues with residential. Our irrigation usage in homes is about 3 times the potable use, which may surprise you, but it really is low, and we don't have those issues like that with residential connections. And in some cases where we do, it's folks that actually bought and paid for larger meters because they had larger lots.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of them.
Yeah, there's a few, it's not too
Case by
often.
case,
But I agree with Bill. I go along with that.
And related to that too, you also might hear some squawking from some of our larger commercial customers because with some of those meter replacements we've been doing, including putting in a compound meter which catches low flow on some of the master metered in particular, when they get their next few round of bills, they're going to be significantly higher because it'll be more accurate reading.
You take care of them.
Yep. And we also came across a couple of large-scale meters in Hampton Park that for years and years have been tapping into our irrigation system, but it wasn't metered. And we're going to be installing meters on those connections. They found 3 in Hampton Park that were tapped off homeowner meters that were watering the common areas. And when they had some breaks, we went in there and had to shut some things off. Well, they weren't shutting it off, and then we're watching our meter when we shut the backside off. And as soon as we closed our meter off, their whole boulevard went down. And this usage could be a
That's a
million
lot of
gallons a month.
Yeah, it's a
Did we verify that those lines aren't looped and double tied into our system?
Yeah, we did ground penetrating radar and looked at where the tap went off, and we found the one on Gateway Boulevard, and it looks like there's another incident of that happening over on Bellcrest.
WCI.
And WCI is paying the tapping fees, paying for the new meter fees and the connections. Unfortunately, with our current rules, we can only go back 90 days on the water charges.
Okay, so he's got a recommendation here to approve this in the amount not to exceed 15,000 to have. Hartman Law Firm do the work.
The other thing I've got is, what is count 400-53105? That's like reading Greek.
It's utility legal.
But,
To
okay, it's
enterprise
utility,
fund.
not 001 or 002.
No, it's a
Okay.
utility enterprise fund. We have a legal budget in there.
Gotcha. I thought 400, that's what it was.
It says utility edge, yeah.
So do I have a
Motion
motion
to
to
approve.
approve? A second?
I'll second if you move it to commercial.
I'll do that. Eliminate, eliminate residential.
Any objections to that, Chris?
The only area where that might come up and would be multifamily. So when you're
Yeah,
talking
you
about
need to be
residential,
careful.
you're talking about
Yeah,
single.
Bill,
So
he's
Bill-
got a good point on that one. Yeah.
Single family.
Single family residential.
Well, no,
Not
I think here's
condos.
what we do. I think we pass as is, but we stipulate the policy.
Yeah, and that can be taken care of in the drafting process. If Chris gives the direction now, as you all are formulating these rates and the policies, we don't want you to have recapture for single-family residential. That's the-
Single-family residential.
Yeah.
Multifamily, yeah, because we've had that game played with us, yeah.
Because ultimately, you won't be you'll be making decisions at the public hearing, and you'll tweak it at that time.
Are you-
I'll correct to that.
You agree with that as a seconder?
I do.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. F, motion to assign fund balances.
I will cover this one.
Are we back to the 2018 leftovers?
This is, yes, we've had discussion earlier today and in prior meetings, wanting to, the board wanting to be able to see in a line item exactly what resources are available in each of the funds to use for future projects. So this schedule, I created to be able to show you based on where you ended up at the end of 2018, September 30th, what would be those future balances for each of the funds. It takes into account anything that you're going to use for 2019. For example, in the general fund, the budget says 120,000 is going to be taken out to cover the stormwater. So I have taken that out and put it into the line called 2019 projects. Same thing for your 2 capital project funds, so I'm not including that in there. So basically, the gray line that goes across would show you the resources that you would have available